Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being with us. I'm very happy, obviously, to be accompanied by my colleagues, Marc Miller, Mary Ng, and Yara Sachs. Very happy that the President of the Canadian Border Services Agency, Erin O'Gorman, is with us. C'est toujours un plaisir d'être avec le commissaire de la GRC, Mike Duhem. Je remercie le commissaire Duhem et la présidente O'Gorman pour leur travail au fil des dernières semaines et les derniers mois. Et je suis très heureux d'annoncer des mesures qui étaient dans l'énoncé économique de l'automne hier. Le Canada et les États-Unis entretiennent depuis des décennies un partenariat sans pareil, tant au niveau économique qu'en matière d'application de la loi. C'est un partenaire qui est immensément bénéfique pour les citoyens de nos deux pays et qui a permis de faire de l'Amérique du Nord un des endroits les plus sûrs et les plus prospères au monde. L'importance de ce partenariat devient particulièrement apparente lors des moments difficiles. Au cours de la dernière décennie, nous avons dû faire face ensemble à deux crises majeures, la crise migratoire et la crise des opioïdes. Malgré notre géographie, nous ne sommes pas à l'abri des impacts de ces crises d'envergure planétaire qui ont un impact direct sur le quotidien de nos citoyens. Ces crises se font ressentir dans nos deux communautés, mais elles se déroulent également à nos frontières. C'est pourquoi, au cours des dernières années, nous avons considérablement renforcé notre capacité de collaboration afin de mieux lutter contre le crime organisé, le trafic de drogue et les réseaux de passage clandestins. Et aujourd'hui, nous annonçons un renforcement considérable de 1,3 milliard de dollars pour nos mesures frontalières, un renforcement qui se fonde sur les mesures et les partenariats que nous avons mis en place au cours de notre mandat. Our new border plan, backed by an investment of $1.3 billion, will secure our border against the flow of illegal drugs and irregular migration, while ensuring the free flow of people and goods that are at the core of North America's prosperity. It's composed of 5 pillars: detecting and addressing fentanyl and its precursors, significant new tools for law enforcement, improving operational coordination, improving information sharing, and minimizing border volumes to the United States. I will lay out the measures pertaining to public safety, and my colleagues Marc Miller and Yara Sachs will speak to the measures stemming from their portfolios. To detect and address fentanyl and its precursors, we will invest in new technology, tools, and human resources. Our investments will enable the Canada Border Services Agency to deploy new chemical detection, imaging, and artificial intelligence-powered tools, as well as new canine teams to better detect illegal drugs at ports of entry. As well, Health Canada will ramp up their investigative capacity to be able to assist law enforcement in determining the source of the drugs and accelerate the regulatory process for banning these precursors. On the second pillar, which seeks to bolster our law enforcement agencies' ability to ensure the continued integrity of our border, we will invest in the deployment by the RCMP of a new aerial intelligence task force comprised of helicopters, drones, and mobile surveillance towers. This new task force will provide round-the-clock surveillance between ports of entry and complement existing foot and vehicle patrols. In addition, in the Fall Economic Statement, we're proposing to expand the Canada Border Services Agency's mandate to allow border officers to legislatively inspect exports the same way they do imports, but enabling us to crack down on the domestic production and export of illegal drugs like fentanyl. In carrying out their mandate, the CBSA and the RCMP interact daily, and literally daily. The Commissioner and the President of CBSA talked to me about ongoing daily interactions with their American law enforcement partners. That operational cooperation is incredibly important, and we're always looking at ways to deepen that collaboration. That was the essence of my preliminary conversation with Tom Homan, the incoming border czar in the Trump administration. We discussed the importance of strengthening and deepening that operational collaboration. It's good for the taxpayers in the two countries, but it's also good for the public security of both countries as well. So to that end, we will propose to the American partners the creation of a new North American joint strike force to target transnational organized crime. This new joint strike force could include, for example, support in operational surges, dedicated synthetic drug units, expanded combined forces special enforcement units, bi-national integrated border enforcement teams, and new technical operations capacity and related infrastructure. So this will also rely on the long-standing and existing collaboration that the RCMP and CBSA have with municipal and provincial police forces, but it will now be expanded, obviously, to include our American partners. Just like operational coordination, information and intelligence sharing agreements are at the very heart of our ability to keep Canadians and Americans safe. Through our border plan, we will work to expand and deepen those existing agreements. As an immediate step, we're proposing through the Fall Economic Statement to amend the Sex Offender Information Registration Act to enhance the RCMP's ability to share information about high-risk travelers with domestic and international partners, obviously including the United States. As well, we will enhance and expand information and intelligence sharing between federal, provincial, territorial, and Indigenous authorities. Throughout, there will be a sharp focus on fentanyl, human smuggling, and organized transnational crime at our borders. Ces investissements, ces propositions et ces mesures législatives augmenteront de manière décisive notre force de frappe à la frontière. Je vais maintenant passer la parole à mon collègue, le ministre de l'Immigration, Marc Miller.
Thank you, Dominic. Good afternoon, everyone. Canada is and everyone knows this here, is a top destination for people seeking to build a better life or to visit. And Canadians expect us to uphold our humanitarian tradition, but also offer the security to those who desperately need it. At the same time, they expect our asylum system to be one that is efficient and well managed and shielded against fraud. They also expect migration from our side of the border, frankly both sides of the border, to be safe and orderly, and in order to strengthen the mutual security with our neighbors to the south. I'm announcing a number of measures today, but let's start off from where we are currently. We invested in Budget 2024 a little over $700 million in over 5 years, $159 million of which was financing for permanent stability, integrity measures for the asylum system. C'est des mesures qui ont été immensément importantes, justement pour stabiliser le système d'asile au Canada qui en avait besoin. After we extended the Safe Third Country Agreement to our entire border, including internal waterways, asylum claims made by people crossing illegally dropped from about 165 per day in March last year to about 12 per day since then. After we introduced the partial visa requirement for Mexicans and Mexican nationals in February to address the high volume of asylum claims, many of which were refused, abandoned, or withdrawn, we've seen a staggering drop of about 97% in claims made by Mexican citizens in Canada compared to 2023. overall asylum claims from Mexico have dropped by 92%. When we learned of increased exploitation of our visitor visas, which affect our shared border with the U.S., people finding a way to get into Canada, the reverse has happened in the U.S. to us as well, with the Roxham Road experience as recent history. We took action. And as a result, illegal crossings into the U.S. by Canadian visa holders have dropped by 84% since June. Important to this is the refusal rate as part of the integrity measures that we put into place, which is about 61% for countries that we've noticed the highest level of abuse. Nous avons également, vous le savez très bien, amélioré le programme des étudiants étrangers, les permis de travail post-diplôme et de conjoint, ainsi que le programme de travailleurs étrangers temporaires, ce qui nous aide à gérer le nombre de résidents temporaires au Canada tout en renforçant justement l'équité et l'intégrité dans l'ensemble du système. This morning we saw the latest stats from Statistics Canada, which shows the slowest growth in our population since the first quarter of 2023. Beaucoup de mesures que j'ai mis en place durant cette dernière année. L'impact de ces mesures se font attendre jusqu'au deuxième quart de 2025, mais déjà aujourd'hui, on voit que les mesures ont eu un effet significatif. Again, these measures have made a real measurable difference. Le système d'asile au Canada est une responsabilité qui est non seulement celle du Canada, mais partagée avec les provinces et les territoires. IRCC, Services frontaliers, la Commission de l'immigration, du statut de réfugié du Canada travaillent en étroite collaboration ensemble pour moderniser ce processus, combler les lacunes et mettre en œuvre des outils plus intelligents afin d'assurer à la fois l'équité et la cohérence. Aujourd'hui, j'annonce d'autres mesures que mon ministère prend pour assurer l'intégrité justement de nos frontières. As Minister LeBlanc mentioned, IRCC will be working with our counterparts in the U.S. to share information that we can improve security and further reduce the risks that individuals with a criminal past can enter Canada. That includes more thorough vetting of electronic travel authorizations, for example. Nous continuerons également de mettre en place des contrôles renforcés et des outils améliorés pour détecter les fraudes et de réduire notamment le nombre de visiteurs qui sont non authentiques au Canada. Beyond these efforts, we're proposing new measures to strengthen the integrity of the immigration system. The first is to put an end to an irritant with the U.S., which is a practice known as flagpoling, people that leave Canada with no intention to go back, no intention to spend any time in the U.S., but then immediately go back in to get quicker processing at the border, where they would have to wait in Canada. Flagpoling uses up valuable resources on both sides of the border, slows border traffic, and prevents officers on both sides of the border from focusing on more critical tasks. When this change comes into effect, temporary residents already in Canada will have to apply online to extend their stay, and flagpoling will no longer be an option. We're proposing to give Canada more control over its immigration documents as well, so we respond to exceptional events in ways that protect Canada and our public resources. So we'll be introducing legislative amendments that will allow us to change, suspend, or cancel immigration documents, including visas, as well as to suspend or cancel applications in our inventory when it's deemed to be in the public interest, for example, in cases of mass fraud. In addition, we'll be introducing measures to streamline the asylum system to deal quickly with illegitimate claims. This will align us, in a sense, with measures that the U.S. already has within its own jurisdiction. Finally, of interest to this, and people that follow this issue, we're implementing further measures that will reinforce program integrity and reduce potential LMIA fraud, such as removing additional points that candidates receive under express entry for having a job offer. This measure is expected to remove the incentive for candidates to purchase an LMIA, resulting in increased fairness and integrity in the express entry system and taking some of the value of the fraud already being perpetrated in the LMIA system. La gestion des nouveaux arrivants est véritablement un effort commun. Elle nécessite une collaboration avec les partenaires étrangers, les États-Unis en l'occurrence, provinciaux, territoriaux, municipaux et communautaires. Nos relations avec les États-Unis sont critiques. Elles nécessitent également une collaboration pour préserver l'intégrité de notre frontière commune de part et d'autre. Et en travaillant avec ces mêmes partenaires, nous pouvons apporter des solutions durables, équitables et conformes à nos valeurs. Et nous pouvons maintenir la confiance des Canadiens dans ce processus même. To anyone considering entering Canada illegally, As we head into the coldest months of the winter, we want to make it clear that trying to cross Canada between our official ports of entry is dangerous, and it will, in almost cases, render any subsequent asylum claim unsuccessful. I now pass the microphone over to my colleague, Yara Sachs. Thank you.
Notice what a nice suit you're wearing.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Dom. Thank you, Mary. Hello, everyone. It's really important that I'm joining you here today with colleagues to talk about next steps. As the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, it's a top priority of mine that we make sure we deliver comprehensive and collaborative strategies to address the overdose crisis in Canada. It's impacted so many communities and families across this country. But we need to recognize that this crisis is driven by an illegal toxic drug supply made up of dangerous substances, particularly fentanyl. And tackling this crisis requires us to use every tool at our disposal. And with today's announcement with colleagues, we're adding another tool in our arsenal in this fight. Health Canada plays a critical role in supporting law and border enforcement to counter the threat of illegal drugs and to keep our communities safe. Community safety and public health need to go hand in hand. Health Canada's Drug Analysis Service operates laboratories across Canada that analyze drugs and substances for law enforcement and drug prosecutions. That's why today we're investing $77.7 million to expand our capacities and strengthen our regulatory capabilities so that law enforcement has the tools that they need to stop the production of illegal drugs and criminals in their tracks. That means establishing a new lab to support 2,000 investigations a year at regional labs with new and expanded capacity. We're also speeding up the regulatory processes to ban precursors and precursor chemicals so that law enforcement can take action to prevent their illegal importation and use in a responsive and adaptive way. We need to be as nimble or more nimble than transnational crime groups. So what that looks like, it means that we're launching a new precursor chemical risk management unit to support this work and identify new substances of concern and enable law enforcement to act faster. These are but a few of the important, strong steps that we are taking in a comprehensive plan to address the threat of synthetic drugs. We can and must protect communities and also get people to the health care that they need. Thank you.
Monsieur LeBlanc, sur l'équipement que vous avez annoncé, est-ce que vous avez une ligne du temps ou un échéancier? Parce que dans la mise à jour économique, quand même, les grosses sommes sont à partir de 2027-28, me semble, là, vite fait de même. Et puis, des hélicoptères, ça ne s'achète pas sur une tablette. J'imagine qu'il y a beaucoup d'équipements qui doivent être, je suis fatiguée, procured, qui doit passer par un approvisionnement. Donc, avez-vous un timeline de ce que vous comptez acheter, puis peut-être des quantités aussi?
C'est une très bonne question. La réponse à haut niveau, c'est le plus vite possible. Vous avez raison. Dans mes conversations avec nos vis-à-vis américains, nous avons décrit les plans qu'on vous a dévoilés aujourd'hui. Nous reconnaissons l'importance d'avoir visiblement ces équipements en place. Le commissaire de la GRC et la présidente de l'Agence des services frontaliers m'ont décrit la façon qu'ils peuvent, sur une base expédiée, avoir plus d'équipements. Vous avez raison, on va acheter de nouveaux hélicoptères, des drones, mais peut-être je peux demander au commissaire Duhem, en termes de l'échéancier pour ces équipements-là, d'ajouter quelque chose?
Les quantités, peut-être?
Et les quantités?
Bien, je vais m'attaquer dans un premier temps à l'échéancier. L'échéancier va demeurer flexible dans le sens que hier, on a rencontré plusieurs départements du gouvernement et puis plusieurs départements ont l'équipement qui pourrait satisfaire nos besoins. Donc, l'idée, vous avez entendu, M. le ministre, c'est que nous voulons l'équipement qui soit accessible immédiatement. Donc, on est en train d'explorer ce volet-là. Pour la question des hélicoptères, il y a plusieurs façons. Évidemment, on ne peut pas juste acheter un hélicoptère demain matin, mais il y a des processus où on peut louer les hélicoptères assez rapidement. Donc, le but pour nous, c'est d'avoir tout l'équipement le plus rapidement possible sur le terrain. Le plus rapidement, on fait la question, si je peux l'avoir demain, je l'aurai demain. On fait encore l'inventaire de qu'est-ce que les départements ont et qu'est-ce qui satisfait nos besoins. Ensuite de ça, il faut arrimer toute la technologie dans un centre opérationnel. Donc.
What you're hoping to buy, what you're hoping to buy.
So in English, We had a meeting yesterday with other government departments that have some of the technology that could assist us. So we're doing that inventory. As for helicopters, I can't just buy a helicopter tomorrow, but there are processes where you can rent a helicopter, and we're exploring every facet that we can. The objective, and you heard the minister earlier, the objective for us is to get the technology out there as soon as we can.
How many this plan, have you communicated this plan to President-elect Trump's team since you've come up with it? And have they given any assurances that it'll be enough to stop with the tariffs?
So, yes, I had an opportunity with the Foreign Affairs Minister who wanted to be with us today, but Melanie has sort of lost her voice. She has the cold that I think I'm starting today. But Melanie and I had a preliminary conversation with the incoming border czar, Tom Homan. It was, we think, encouraging. I went through with Mr. Homan the information that we're sharing with you today, talked about particularly issues like the Joint Strike Force and how our national federal police, the RCMP, will work with American enforcement agencies with which he's very familiar. I'm encouraged by that conversation and by conversations I've had with the incoming Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick. We agreed both in the case of Mr. Homan and Mr. Lutnick to hopefully get together in person in the next couple of weeks to continue the conversation. So I'm optimistic. We have a lot of work ahead of us. It's important that I think people understand that, and I said this to our American counterparts, the fight against fentanyl is very much a fight that Canadians want to have because of its impact in Canada. So we have a partnership with the Americans on these issues that's been around for decades, deepening, strengthening, being more visible in the posture at the border is something that we're happy to do with our American partners. But it's very important for Canadians that we do this work. And I'm confident that as we continue to work with our American partners, they'll see that our resolve is absolute, that we share completely their concerns around the integrity of the border, as Marc spoke about the integrity of the visa process and the fight against organized crime and synthetic drugs. So there's no daylight in terms of the objectives we share with the incoming administration, but I'm confident that the work we have to do over the coming weeks will be in the best interest of Canadians.
Monsieur LeBlanc, combien d'agents vous ajoutez à la frontière et pourquoi vous étalez le financement, l'investissement sur 5 ans? Si on comprend bien, l'argent ne va pas venir tout de suite avec des sommes astronomiques.
C'est une très bonne question. On a discuté et chez la GRC et chez les agents de services frontaliers. On parle d'ajouter des centaines de nouveaux agents. Vous avez raison, il s'agit de recruter. Les agences de services frontaliers recrutent à peu près 500 nouveaux agents par année. Madame O'Gorman m'a décrit le plan pour augmenter ce recrutement-là. Le commissaire de la GRC m'a confirmé, évidemment, ils vont ajouter des effectifs, du personnel dans leur lutte contre le crime transnational. Ça dépend. Le commissaire ou Mme O'Gorman peut vous donner des précisions. Dans les deux cas, on parle d'au-delà de 100 agents, sinon 150 assez vite. Il s'agit de recruter et former ces agents-là. Le commissaire et Mme O'Gorman m'ont parlé de redéployer des agents au besoin. On a évidemment des plans de contingence à tous les postes frontaliers. J'ai pleine confiance dans le travail qu'ils ont fait. Et vous avez raison, le recrutement et ensuite les carrières de ces nouveaux agents, ça va s'allonner sur plusieurs années. Mais j'ai beaucoup de confiance dans les assurances que j'ai eues et du commissaire et de la présidente que nous serons en mesure très vite d'augmenter ce personnel aux frontières.
You were at Mar-a-Lago recently. Doug Ford said that he doesn't think that anything we do on the border will make a difference, that these tariffs are coming anyway, the 25% tariff from U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. Do you think that this action today is enough to stop those tariffs coming?
It's an important step to show Canadians and our American partners that we share their concern around border security and border integrity. We have taken note of President Trump's comments and, as I said, in a number of conversations with officials who will be playing senior roles in his administration on these issues. I'm encouraged by those conversations, but we have a lot of work to do. I had an encouraging exchange with Premier Ford this morning. We're very much going to rely on Premier Ford, his colleague premiers, that he's chairing the Council of the Federation at this moment, we think is important for Canada. He and other premiers have a very important role in talking to Americans about the impact of these tariffs on affordability issues in the United States. We understand their impact in Canada. And in terms of law enforcement, there are integrated border enforcement teams that exist now, whether it's with the Sûreté de Québec, the Ontario Provincial Police, large municipal police forces. The RCMP and CBSA are doing a lot of this work jointly with provincial agencies. So they will again have a line of sight on the increase in the posture that we're announcing today. But we'll continue to do that work with President Trump and his incoming administration.
As the new finance minister, are you committed to the $250 checks that your government plans to give out?
We've said that we think it's important for the government to provide affordability measures that speak to the cost of living pressures that Canadians are feeling. We're happy that Parliament adopted a GST break for certain items around Christmas and into the new year. We're happy that that measure is in place now. We were disappointed that the opposition parties didn't want to work with us on further relief for Canadians, but I'm confident that in the coming weeks, Parliament is not coming back. I think it adjourned a few moments ago. You'll all be very disappointed. I know you're excited about the return on the 27th of January, as you can imagine we are. But between now and the 27th of January, we'll be hard at work, including talking to our opposition friends about what measures they would support that will speak to the cost of living that Canadians are facing. So I'm optimistic always that Parliament will find a way to support Canadians at a difficult moment, but I also know that we have a minority government. I left my television on till the end of the broadcast in 2021. It's a minority parliament. So we'll work with opposition parties in a collaborative way.
Oui, j'étais intéressée de savoir on sait que le Canada et les États-Unis n'ont pas la même définition de la fraude concernant les immigrants, notamment les réfugiés. J'aimerais savoir comment vous travaillez avec eux sur ça.
Je pense que le principe de base, c'est de rester fier à nos principes. Quand on parle de fraude, et même la rhétorique qu'on a vue, surtout durant la dernière élection, ce n'est pas le Canada, je pense, qu'on veut vivre. Mais c'est clair qu'il y avait des enjeux dans notre système d'asile qu'il faut régler. Les mesures que j'ai annoncées aujourd'hui, je pense, procèdent d'une façon respectueuse pour s'assurer qu'on maintient l'intégrité du système, c'est-à-dire que les gens qui viennent ici sous le prétexte d'un visa de touriste, par exemple, soient vraiment des touristes et qui retournent chez eux et qui ne profitent pas de l'opportunité pour se diriger vers les États-Unis. Alors, on a vu, par exemple, dans la dernière année, un flux, que ce soit de ressortissants mexicains, on a comblé la brèche, et maintenant, de gens qui viennent notamment de l'Inde et du Bangladesh. C'est quelque chose qu'on a su adresser, une réduction de 84% depuis même cet été. Mais c'est sûr qu'on va pas toujours être sur la même longueur d'onde avec les États-Unis. Vous avez tous vécu la dernière élection, vous savez comment on parle d'immigrants et de réfugiés. Ce n'est pas la même rhétorique ici au Canada, mais on a des enjeux à régler. Et dans la mesure où ça s'est satisfait des demandes d'abord du Canada et ensuite des États-Unis, légitimes, je pense que c'est raisonnable de le faire.
Sur les tiers pays sûrs, j'ai peut-être raté... des fois, vous parlez un peu vite. C'est peut-être ma faute. Mais vous n'avez pas parlé du loophole, l'entente des tiers pays sûrs. Si on rentre et qu'on réussit à rentrer, on peut faire une demande dans les 14 jours. Est-ce que ça fait partie de ce que vous annoncez aujourd'hui ou finalement non?
Évidemment, toute discussion sur l'entente des tiers parties exige la présence puis la négociation avec les États-Unis. ils ont peut-être une idée fixe aussi sur comment on devrait procéder sur l'entente sur les tiers parties, sur les tiers pays sûrs. Des loopholes, on peut débattre de ce que c'est. Il y a certaines exceptions, certes, dans l'entente sur les tiers pays sûrs qui font en sorte que c'est une entente qui est légitime devant les cours. Mais s'il y a des gens qui abusent de ces brèches, il faut trouver une autre façon de les colmater.
Évoqué
Oui, je sais, il y
en
a eu-
amont, puis là, vous n'en avez pas parlé. Donc, je veux juste être
Ben,
sûre que ça veut
il y a des
donc
partis
dire
politiques
que-
qui nous ont demandé de combler la brèche ou de l'exception des 14 jours. Pour l'instant, ce serait une discussion qui serait d'abord faite avec les États-Unis. C'est une entente à deux sens, c'est-à-dire que les États-Unis doivent appliquer la même règle. Donc, parfois, un côté en profite, l'autre en profite moins. Mais c'est sûr que quand il y a des abus, il y a d'autres façons de les adresser. Est-ce que ce serait de retourner les gens qui profitent de cette brèche plus vite dans leur pays au lieu de les retourner aux États-Unis? C'est une idée, mais toute proposition va devoir puis exigera une législation devant le Parlement même, qui est en situation, comme vous le savez, de sclérose. Mais en même temps, j'ai des indications du Bloc québécois et qui seraient ouverts à regarder ce qu'on proposerait. Et je ne pense pas que qui que ce soit devrait prendre Pierre Poilievre sur sa parole, mais il nous assurait qu'il allait s'assurer un passage rapide du réforme du système d'asile devant le Parlement quand on revenait ou immédiatement. Donc, ouais, il a dit ça à un moment donné. Comme vous le savez, je l'écoute pas trop attentivement, mais quand il dit des choses, et je m'attends à ce qu'il tienne sa parole, on va s'assurer de s'en souvenir quand il changera ses idées.
When are you going to get the task forces up and running? When are you going to get the
Is there another
task
question?
forces
Like,
up and running? I want to just know a timeline, or when do you think you'll have these proposals all implemented?
Dominic has said as quickly as
Strike
possible.
force, the joint strike force, you mean?
Any of them. A timeline on anything, I'll take it. Yeah, any timeline. Is this all going to be implemented at the same time?
There's already some work ongoing. Do you want Mike? Do you want to?
Commissioner, did you notice that Marc Miller and I are wearing the same uniform as well today, too?
I wasn't going to comment.
Mike, do you want to? We have a uniform too, Mike.
So just to explain about the strike force is we currently have officers across the country that work on multiple commodities, and what we want to do is we want to develop specialists in the world for fentanyl. That would include not only RCMP, but have law enforcement partners at the table working together, not only on the national scene, but on the international scene as well. You might recall the success we had with Giant Slalom with the FBI. We want to replicate that and have more people abroad working where the source countries are and having an impact.
Do you have the bodies to do that right now? Like if you wanted to do it tomorrow?
Well, you heard the minister earlier. We're looking at in excess of 150 new resources for the organization. I can reprioritize some of the resources that we currently have to focus on fentanyl, and that's going to be a work in progress. The team is working on finalizing the plan.
Merci, thank you very much.